Welcome to Hangar 51 Files, where history's secrets, classified operations, and hidden truths come to light. From Cold War black ops to the future of warfare, from lost artifacts to emerging defense technologies, we investigate the stories buried beneath official narratives. No speculation, no clickbait, just hard-hitting research, expert analysis, and the pursuit of truth. You're now inside the briefing room. Stay sharp, stay curious. This is Hangar 51 Files.
Okay, so today we're diving into some really fascinating research on the Giza pyramids. Specifically, we're focusing on the Pyramid of Kefren.
Right.
And we've got this pretty detailed presentation that dives into some really unconventional scanning techniques.
Yeah.
And some really surprising findings
Okay.
within this pyramid. So basically, we're going to try to pull out the most interesting insights about these potential hidden structures.
Sounds good.
And the, really innovative methods they use to find them.
Yeah, this research actually started in a pretty unexpected place.
Oh?
It began by looking at some unusual features inside the northern shaft of the Queen's Chamber in the Great Pyramid. And this actually reminded the researchers of a kind of little-known feature in the King's Chamber.
Okay.
In the antechamber entrance. It's like a small conduit.
Interesting.
And, it's often those overlooked details that can spark these bigger investigations.
Right.
So those subtle anomalies were really the starting point.
That's fascinating. And those observations in the Queen's Chamber's northern shaft, those were pretty revealing too.
Definitely.
We're talking about physical evidence that suggests someone forced their way in.
Wow.
Things like debris, a ticket to Giza. I think it was from the 70s or 80s.
Huh, like a visitor ticket.
Yeah, something like that. And even a Russian film reel.
A film reel? What?
Yeah, I know, right?
That's not something you usually find in an ancient place like that.
Yeah, exactly.
It really makes you wonder who could have accessed that area, without permission and what they were doing there.
Totally. And it's amazing how that, what seems like a one-off discovery, actually led to this huge research project.
Oh, yeah?
They called it Kefren.
Right, and the presenter really emphasized the collaborative nature of this whole thing and the crucial role of advanced technology in the project. It wasn't just about those initial weird findings. It turned into this systematic, tech-driven effort to understand the whole Giza Plateau in a new light.
So let's talk timeline.
Sure.
The presenter discusses building on Robert Bauval's correlation theory.
Right.
And for anyone who might not know, Bauval's theory basically proposes this connection between the layout of the pyramids and the stars in the Orion constellation. But this research takes it way further, proposing a much, much earlier date for the Giza monuments.
Like how much earlier?
We're talking 36,400 BC.
Wow, 36,400 BC.
Yeah. That's huge.
I know, right?
Yeah.
That's not just the three big pyramids and the Sphinx.
Right.
We're talking other structures like the mastaba of Khentkaz, Tomb NC2, Amenhotep II's temple, even the two temples at the Sphinx's feet.
That's incredible.
And this claim is based on the celestial alignments of all these different structures.
That's a massive change in perspective.
Totally. So the big takeaway here is that they're suggesting a way older origin for the Giza complex than what's conventionally accepted.
Yeah, and if you connect that proposed timeline to the bigger picture of human history...
Right. It really makes you rethink who could have built these monuments and when.
Yeah.
Because 36,400 BC, that's tens of thousands of years before the Old Kingdom period.
Right, which is when they say the pyramids were built.
Exactly.
It means there could have been a totally different civilization back then. Maybe way more advanced than we currently realize.
It really makes you think.
So that leads to the big question, right? If the Giza complex is that old, who built it and how?
Right.
The presenter uses this interesting phrase.
Okay.
They talk about trying to understand the mind of the serial killer.
The serial killer?
Yeah, referring to the original builders, whoever they were.
Okay.
And the idea is to decipher how they communicated.
Makes sense.
Especially because there were no hieroglyphs inside the Giza pyramids.
That's true.
They even suggest that inscription we see with the Z.
The Z, you mean that architectural feature above the King's Chamber?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They think it might have been added later.
Oh, interesting.
Or even be a forgery.
Really?
Yeah. So if not hieroglyphs, then what?
Right.
That's the question.
It makes you wonder how they manage these huge, complicated projects without any written language that we know of.
Totally.
It's a real mystery.
And this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The presentation brings up physical evidence that points to this earlier period of activity.
Okay.
We're talking about specific erosion patterns on some blocks on the Great Pyramid's north face and northwest corner.
Okay.
And these aren't just any weathering marks.
Right.
They're deep traces that look like they were caused by being submerged in water.
Water, so like a flood?
Yeah, potentially.
Wow.
They suggest a major event around 10,500 BC.
10,500 BC?
Yeah.
Hold on, that's the same date Baval proposed for that celestial alignment.
It is, yeah.
That's pretty interesting.
It's wild, right? And they think this event exposed these areas to water for a long time, meaning the pyramid might have been partially taken apart and then submerged.
That's a huge claim.
It is, but the evidence is compelling.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, there have been periods of major sea level rise in Earth's history.
Exactly.
So it's not impossible.
Not at all.
And then there's the incredible craftsmanship of those large limestone blocks.
Right, east of the Great Pyramid.
Yeah, and at the bases of the Kefren and Menkar pyramids and around the Sphinx.
Those blocks are so well made.
They're incredible.
Perfectly aligned.
Yeah.
And huge.
It doesn't really line up with what we know about Old Kingdom construction techniques.
Right. Like, how did they move those giant stones with just wooden mallets and copper chisels?
It doesn't seem possible.
So it seems like there might have been some serious construction skills going on way before the Old Kingdom.
Yeah, I mean, we might be looking at evidence of highly advanced stonework happening much earlier than we thought.
And then the discussion moves to some strange internal features in the Great Pyramid.
Okay, like what?
They mention a granite block blocking a passage above the ascending corridor in the Great Gallery.
Interesting.
And apparently this lines up with some earlier reconstructions of the pyramid.
You mean like internal maps or something?
Yeah, basically.
So it sounds like they were deliberately blocking some internal pathways, maybe hiding more chambers or different routes inside.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that it matches up with those reconstructions really lends credibility to the whole thing.
Makes sense.
And there's another granite block that seems to be sealing off an area at the top of the Great Gallery's east wall.
So it's not just random pieces of stone?
No, they seem like intentional choices.
Yeah, architectural decisions
Right.
to hide something.
Potentially. And then there's this interesting story about custodians revealing a hidden corridor in the king's chamber.
Wow, a hidden corridor.
Well, apparently it goes down several meters.
Okay.
And then splits into an upward path that leads to a well.
Huh, a well.
Yeah.
So wait, remember that 4th century in the Queen's Chamber's northern shaft?
Yeah.
Maybe this hidden corridor was how they got in.
It's possible.
So there could be these interconnected, maybe even secret passageways within the Great Pyramid.
Right. And the layout is way more complex than we thought.
It's fascinating.
Totally. Now, the focus shifts to the Pyramid of Kefren.
Okay.
The presenter went there and noticed some differences in its layout compared to the Great Pyramid.
Like what?
At the end of the descending corridor, there's this horizontal passage, and you can actually stand up in it.
Stand up. So it's tall.
Yeah, pretty tall.
That's unusual.
And there's a niche in this passage.
A niche, like a recessed area.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And the location of this niche seems to be really important. Apparently, some diagrams of Kefren's interior have it in the wrong spot. The presenter says it's actually right across from the doorway to the second chamber.
The second chamber in Kefren.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It seems like they were really careful about mapping out the pyramid's architecture.
It makes sense, but it also sounds like a lot of work.
Oh, for sure.
Just to figure out the layout.
But then, here's the frustrating part.
What?
They were denied access to that second chamber.
Seriously? Why?
No idea. But they mentioned there was some scan pyramid machinery around.
Scan pyramid?
Yeah, like some kind of advanced scanning equipment. And they were worried about potential damage, like what happened in the Queen's chamber.
When they drilled into it.
Exactly.
It sounds like there could be some ongoing, maybe even secret research happening.
It's definitely possible. And the fact that they were denied access really makes you wonder what they're hiding.
Totally.
But the exploration of Kefren doesn't stop there.
Okay.
In that same horizontal passage, the presenter noticed a weirdly shaped block.
On the left wall?
Yeah, and it looked like it was blocking another passage.
Like a hidden passage?
Exactly.
That's pretty exciting.
It was different from the other blocks, not a regular shape.
So it was intentional?
Right. And higher up, there's another niche.
Okay.
And this one has a pink granite block.
Pink granite?
Yeah, and it's blocking a sandstone block.
That's interesting. They used different types of stone.
Right, almost like they were trying to hide something specific.
And the different materials could be a clue.
Totally. And here's a really interesting parallel.
Okay.
Inside Belzoni's chamber,
Yeah.
they found 2 shafts facing each other.
2 shafts, like in the king's and queen's chamber.
Exactly.
So it's a mirror image.
Uh-huh. It suggests some kind of shared design.
Yeah. Or a common purpose for those shafts.
And they even think there might be more shafts in the upper corners.
More shafts.
Yeah, near some maintenance work they were doing.
Wow. So Kafra could have a much more extensive shaft system
Than we ever thought.
That's incredible. And get this. The timing of this visit is crazy.
What do you mean?
It was exactly 207 years after Belzoni discovered that chamber.
Seriously?
March 2nd, 1818 versus March 2nd, 2025.
Wow, that's wild.
It's like an echo through history.
It is, yeah.
It's amazing how we're still exploring these places.
Totally. Now, moving outside the pyramid, they noticed some cracks in the northeast area of Kefren's base.
Cracks. Could that be from internal collapses?
Possibly.
Or maybe more unexplored spaces inside?
Yeah. Those external signs could point to some pretty interesting things.
It would be fascinating to scan that area.
Totally. Okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about the Valley Temple.
Okay.
You know, the one next to the Sphinx.
Yeah.
It has this dual construction.
Dual construction.
Yeah, there's an outer layer of eroded sandstone blocks, and then an inner structure made from granite.
Granite. Interesting.
And they say Kefren built it.
Really? Based on what?
Mostly a diorite statue they found upside down in a well.
In a well.
Yeah, weird, right?
That's not much to go on.
Not really.
Especially with the difference between the sandstone and the granite.
I know, right? The granite is so well preserved.
Yeah.
And the sandstone is all eroded.
Makes you think there were different building phases?
Yeah, or even different builders.
Potentially.
And those granite blocks in the inner temple are huge.
Like how big?
70 to 80 tons.
70 to 80 tons? That's insane.
I know, right?
And they fit together perfectly.
With curved cuts.
Yeah,
even
cuts.
Yeah.
That's way beyond anything we thought the Old Kingdom could do.
Totally. And the presenter makes this really interesting observation.
Okay.
They say the layout of the Valley Temple looks like an electrical circuit.
An electrical circuit?
Yeah, or a microchip.
That's a bold statement.
It is, right. But makes you think about the design in a whole new way.
It does, yeah.
And then they get into a symbolic interpretation of the architecture.
Okay.
Like a 3-pronged shape, 16 columns, and a niche.
And they assign numbers to those.
Yeah, 3, 16, and 1.
And 16 adds up to 7, right?
Exactly. So you get 3, 7, and 1, which they say is an anagram of 137.
An anagram of 137.
Yeah, and then they connect those numbers to some deeper meanings.
Like what?
They say 3, which is associated with the Hebrew letter Shin, represents reincarnation. And 1, which is associated with Tau, represents the incarnated king and the completion of great work.
So they're saying the builders might have hidden a language within the design.
It's a possibility.
It's fascinating.
It is. Okay, now they bring up this concept of a menti.
Mementi.
Yeah, it's from the Emerald Tablets.
Oh, the Emerald Tablets. Interesting.
And these tablets talk about these vast underground chambers.
Chambers.
Yeah, connected by light.
Connected by light. Wow.
I know, right?
So like a whole underground world.
And they mention deep shafts that were built to bring light and life to a menti.
And they connect this to the ancient wells at Giza.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
There could be this whole illuminated subterranean realm beneath Giza.
That's amazing.
I know, and it ties into the Egyptian idea of the afterlife.
Right, Amenti as the underworld.
Rostau as the Giza serpent.
And Duat as the celestial realm.
Exactly. And the presenter argues that to really understand Giza, we need to look at it as a whole.
Not just east to west?
But also top to bottom.
I like that idea.
They propose this journey, starting with the Sphinx as the guardian of life at sunrise in the east, then the entrance to Amenti in the west, and a journey through this underground city back to the Sphinx.
So it's like a cycle of birth, death, and rebirth.
Exactly.
That's a beautiful way to look at it.
It is, right. It connects everything together.
Yeah, it's a grand vision of the whole Giza complex.
Absolutely. Okay, now get ready for some serious tech talk.
Yep, mate.
They introduce this revolutionary scanning technique.
Okay.
They call it spatial sonar.
Spatial sonar. And it operates from where?
From space.
Space, seriously.
Yeah, I know, right? They use SAR, which is synthetic aperture radar.
Okay.
It's mounted on satellites that orbit the Earth.
That's next level.
Totally different from anything we've seen before.
So they're doing remote sensing on a huge scale.
Exactly.
And it can see through certain materials, right?
Yeah, and it uses the satellite's movement over time
Okay.
to create a much bigger effective antenna.
Huh. So they can get high-resolution images from space.
Right. And they do this clever thing with the Doppler effect.
The Doppler effect.
Yeah, you know how sound changes as something moves towards or away from you.
Right, right.
So they use that in how they process the radar signals.
I'm trying to picture this.
So instead of just focusing on the surface, like normal SAR,
Yeah.
they look for these tiny shifts in the signal
Okay.
over multiple passes of the satellite.
Yeah.
And these shifts reveal movements.
What kind of movements?
Consistent movements that match up with the Earth's rotation.
Wow, that's precise.
It is. But here's the mind-blowing part.
Okay.
They found that electromagnetic waves, the radar signals,
Yeah.
can transform into acoustic waves called phonons.
Tonons.
Yeah, and this happens when they interact with matter, like the pyramid stone,
So they're turning light into sound.
essentially. Yeah,
And these sound waves can travel through dense material,
exactly.
so they can image the interior using sound from space.
That's the idea.
That's crazy.
I know, it's wild, right?
Yeah.
They call it a space turntable.
Space turntable.
Yeah, they say the Earth is like the vinyl record,
Okay.
the electromagnetic wave is the needle,
Uh-huh.
and the photon-phonon interaction, where the wave turns into sound, is like the stylus.
That's a great analogy.
Right. It translates the information from one form to another.
It makes it easier to understand.
Totally. And they actually tested this out.
Really?
They successfully measured vibrations on high-voltage power lines from space.
Power lines from space.
Yeah, using this method,
That's impressive.
it shows how sensitive their technique is.
Yeah, even to tiny vibrations.
Exactly. Then they use these complex algorithms called tomographic inversion.
Tomographic inversion. What's that?
It's basically a way to create 3D images from slices of data.
So like a 3D ultrasound or a CT scan?
Yeah, exactly. But they're doing it with sound waves from space.
That's incredible.
And they can create these detailed sound photographs of what's underground.
That's wild.
I know. And the crazy thing is, this technique actually predicted the discovery of the corridor of discord.
The corridor of discord? The one in the Great Pyramid?
Yeah.
Wait, so they found it with this technique?
Before it was physically discovered.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's huge.
It really validates the whole thing.
But like they're seeing through the pyramid.
And it's not just pyramids.
Really?
They've used this method to image other structures too.
Like what?
The Gran Sasso National Laboratory in Italy. They found the INFN lab and parts of the tunnels there.
So it works on modern structures too?
Yeah, they also imaged the Mosul Dam in Iraq.
The Mosul Dam?
Yeah, they could see internal galleries and even the turbine area.
That's amazing.
And they even imaged the Gotthard Base Tunnel in Switzerland.
So it works on all kinds of large, dense structures.
Yeah, not just ancient ones.
That's incredible.
I know, right? And they've got an international patent for this technology.
Really? In Malta?
Yeah.
So it's not just a research project, it's commercially viable.
Totally. Okay, are you ready for the results of the Kefren scan?
I'm on the edge of my seat.
All right, so they found some really unexpected things.
Like what?
Way more than just the mostly empty interior that we thought was there.
Okay.
The initial images showed these unusual tubes and layered structures going down through the center of the pyramid.
Tubes and layers.
Yeah, it suggests a way more complex internal architecture.
Than we ever imagined.
Exactly.
That's a big deal.
It is.
And it changes our whole understanding of Kefren.
Totally. And they had to make adjustments to the data.
What kind of adjustments?
Because the satellite's antenna wasn't perfectly parallel to the pyramid.
That makes sense.
It's pretty amazing how precise they have to be.
Yeah, with remote sensing like that.
So from the horizontal slices,
Yeah.
they found distinct, repeating structures in the pyramid's core.
Like what?
Layered structures, almost like stacked platforms.
That sounds familiar.
They compared it to the structure above the king's chamber in the Great Pyramid.
You mean the Zed? So they're saying there might be multiple Zeds in Kefren.
That's what it looks like.
That's wild.
I know, right? And they found about 5 of these layered structures.
5? That's a lot.
Yeah, and then the vertical slices.
Yeah.
They showed these downward sloping features. At first, they thought it was just reflections in the data.
Okay.
But after more analysis and noise reduction, they found that it was actually 8 separate tubes.
Oh, 8 tubes.
Yeah, descending down.
Wow.
And they're arranged in 2 rows of 4.
2 rows of 4.
And get this, they're spiral-shaped.
Spiral-shaped tubes. That's so weird.
I know, right? It's like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It makes you wonder what they were for.
Totally. And based on all this data, they created a 3D model.
A 3D model of what?
Of what might be inside Kefren.
Wow, okay.
It shows these 8 tubes leading down to 2 massive chambers.
Chambers?
Yeah, like box-shaped chambers.
How big?
About 80 meters by 80 meters.
80 by 80 meters, that's huge.
And they're located about 648 meters below the base of the pyramid.
648 meters, that's over 2,000 feet deep.
I know, it's crazy.
So there's this whole massive underground structure.
And there's even a smaller box-like structure between the 2 big ones, with a bright spot on what looks like its floor.
A bright spot?
Yeah.
What could that be?
No idea, but it's definitely interesting.
It's all very mysterious.
And then they compare these findings to other ancient structures.
Okay, like what?
They mention the Well of St. Patrick in Italy, and the step wells of India, like Chanbaori, and the underground city of Durinkuyu in Turkey.
Which also has those shaft-like features. So it's not just a Giza thing.
Right. It seems like similar designs were used all over the world.
And it makes you wonder about the dating of those other structures.
Yeah, because dating stone is really tricky.
It is, yeah.
So we might have to rethink the timelines for those places too.
Potentially.
And to back up their findings.
Yeah.
They actually fed the Kefren data into an AI.
An AI?
Yeah, artificial intelligence.
Wow, okay.
And the AI, on its own, identified the voids and the vertical shafts.
In the same places as their scans.
Exactly.
That's pretty convincing.
It is, right. It adds another layer of validation.
Totally. But what about the chambers we already know about in Kefren?
Good question.
Like Belzoni's chamber.
So they address that.
Okay.
To say the known layout is within this massive platform that supports the pyramid.
A platform?
Yeah, like a foundation. And they think this platform absorbs the vibrations from the spatial sonar.
So it's like a shield.
Yeah, essentially. And that's why we don't see those chambers in the scans.
Okay, that's a good explanation.
Except for features that stick out beyond the platform, like the roof and the known shafts.
Right, right.
So it's not that they're not there, it's just that we can't see them with this method.
Interesting.
But they didn't just scan Kefren.
No.
They did a wider scan of the Giza Plateau.
Okay.
They found downward sloping features under the Great Pyramid too.
Under Khufu?
Yeah.
Wow, just like under Kefren.
I know. And they also found a luminous structure under the Pyramid of Menkaure.
A luminous structure? What does that even mean?
No idea. But it's clearly something unusual.
That's so cool.
It seems like these features might be part of a network that runs under the whole plateau.
That's a mind-blowing idea.
And then they zoomed out even further.
Okay.
They processed a wider slice of data and found this massive structure.
A massive structure?
Yes, square or rectangular.
Wow.
With what they call a pillar of pillars coming down from the Khufu area.
A pillar of pillars? What does that even look like?
No idea, but it sounds pretty epic.
It does, yeah.
And the luminous area under Kefren shows those tubes leading down to the big chambers.
Right.
And they also found rectangular structures on either side of this pillar.
It's like they built a whole city underground.
It's incredible.
It's amazing.
I know, right? And then they did a 90-degree scan.
90 degrees. From where to where?
From Kefren to the Sphinx.
Okay.
And they found all these vertical anomalies. Yeah, and guess what?
What?
They lined up with the locations of known wells.
Seriously?
Yeah, and they think these wells go down about 1,200 meters.
1,200 meters? That's like 3/4 of a mile deep.
I know, it's insane.
It's a massive underground network.
And they did a scan of the Osiris shaft.
The Osiris shaft?
Yeah, one of the big wells.
Okay.
And they found multiple levels going down to 35 meters.
Wow.
And there's a submerged structure down there.
A submerged structure.
Yeah, made from granite. And they think it might contain something like a sarcophagus.
A sarcophagus in a well.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's so weird.
And the water around it is different from Nile water.
Different how?
Chemically different.
So it's not just groundwater.
Right.
Maybe it comes from somewhere else.
Or maybe it interacts with the rock down there.
That's interesting.
And the scans showed hints of deeper structures.
But they couldn't see them clearly.
No, because of the water.
Too bad.
But they did see movement in the water.
Movement?
Yeah, both inside and around that submerged structure.
So it's not just stagnant water down there.
Right. It's a dynamic environment.
That's pretty amazing.
And they gave a shout out to Umbra Space and Capella Space.
Who are they?
They provide high-resolution SAR data from their satellites.
So they were crucial for this research.
Absolutely.
It's amazing how space technology is helping us understand ancient sites.
Totally. So to recap, Kefren has a much more complex interior than we thought.
Yeah.
With those layered chambers and the spiral tubes leading to huge underground chambers.
That's it for this episode of Hangar 51 Files, where we uncover the hidden, investigate the unexplained, and challenge the official story. If you found this episode insightful, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with those who refuse to accept surface-level narratives. For more deep dives, exclusive research, and behind-the-scenes content, visit www.hangar51files.com, our YouTube channel, at Hangar 51 Files, or our Substack, hangar51files.substack.com. Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and keep questioning everything. This is Hangar 51 Files, signing off. No speculation, no clickbait, just hard-hitting research, expert analysis, and the pursuit of truth.